to learning more from all of you. And thank you so much for coming and sharing some wisdom and experiences with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lex. But yeah, before we get started, I just want to say thank you to Salesforce.org and Lex for allowing us to come in and host this session. We've gathered a great group of speakers that are very involved with their communities, empowering other folks to, take control of their finances. And, really excited to hear from them. We did a practice session earlier this week, and it was amazing. So I'm so excited for them to share. But before we get started, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Elizabeth Lamb. I'm the Partnerships Manager for Breaking the Glass. We are an ESG program within S3, which is a STEM talent provider. And what Breaking the Glass does specifically is partner with tech companies and nonprofits to provide free personalized programming on diversity inclusion and women's career development topics. We have provided webinars for our partners like Walmart, Dell, IBM, and Charter Communications, also Rad Women, another Salesforce group as well. So let me know if you want to learn more or collaborate on a program or event. I'm going to be going on mute and off video until the end of the program, so I can provide some back-end support in the chat. Also, there will be a post-event survey. We'd love to get your feedback on that as well. And yeah, chat in, participate, shout out to our speakers, and then if you have questions at the end, submit them to the Q&A box below. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our moderator to get us kicked off on speaker introductions.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. My name is Laurie Watts, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. Just to give a quick overview of myself, I am a Salesforce Alliance Manager at Computer Futures. So I work with customers who are struggling to staff internal Salesforce teams, either after an implementation partner is winding down, or just to help the customer become a little bit more self-sufficient, even while working with an implementation partner. And we are a registered partner of Salesforce. We've staffed Marketing Cloud, MuleSoft, Health Cloud, Financial Services Cloud, CPQ, kind of just across the space in Salesforce. And along with that, I am a big advocate for Breaking the Glass Foundation that Elizabeth runs. I've been trying to become a bit more involved in the community recently. And after living through the pandemic for about the past year and a half, that's impacted the entire world, and still being a fairly fresh professional in the workforce, I just think that this is like a very relevant topic, economically empowered women. So I'm very happy to be part of the conversation and moderate and hear a little bit from everyone and what you guys do in your own community. So with that said, I will pass the introduction along. Maggie, if you want to take it away, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. This is super exciting. My name is Maggie Clackengay. I am a certified financial planner and a certified public accountant, and I'm the owner of Make a Money Mind Shift, which is a financial coaching and planning firm in Central Illinois. So I'm super excited to be here and participate in this conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you. Laurie?
Hi, my name is Laurie Watts. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I was a computer programmer, but when COVID hit, I took a break, and I'm in the middle of doing a transition to another career involving finances. So I've been learning about this stuff and enjoying that. I've also am a co-organizer of the Austin Women's Investment Group, which is a group of friends that got together just to talk about finances, and it grew and it grew and it grew because there's so many women who want to know about this topic. But right now we're doing Zoom meetings. So if anyone wants to join, they can join, and we have people in different parts of the country that do join. So you could search on Meetup for Austin Women's Investing, or on Facebook, Austin Women's Investing. It's actually, yeah, I see Elizabeth put it in the chat. So yeah, join us if you'd like to talk about more topics. That's about it for me.
Awesome.
I'm really excited to be here too.
Me too. Naomi?
Yes, of course, we're all excited to be here. But my name is Naomi Onyabuchi. I am a Scrum Master for GM Financial. My journey has actually taken me from fitness to finance to now fintech and martech side of things. I work in digital marketing. I am new to the tech industry, but finances have been something that I'm very passionate about. I serve on the boards as a treasurer for Hearts to Heal, as well as serve on the Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council for GM Financial. So being able to share my journey from being an entrepreneur to also working in corporate America and all the little things that I've learned along the way is something that I'm very excited to share with everyone today. So that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, without further ado, we'll jump right into the first question. We have a really great group here today, so I know it's going to be a very engaging and I think helpful conversation. So to start, just getting started setting financial goals can be very overwhelming. So what advice do you guys have for people looking to start goal setting on their own financial journey? And Maggie, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I always like to say start small. So let's start by congratulating yourselves that you're actually going to go and set some financial goals. Like if you were like me before and you think I'm not even going to set goals because I'm going to fail at them, so I'm already failing forward, it's okay. Get that out of the way and just congratulate yourself because you're going to set some goals. So you start small. And then the second thing you want to do is you want to start asking yourself some questions. What is it that you truly value? What really speaks to you? So it may be that, like Carl Richards, he's a financial planner, and he might ask, why is money important to you? So maybe you're saying, well, it means more time to me. Okay. So then what does more time mean to you? Well, it may mean that, for example, I get to go for a longer hike, or maybe I get to attend a few more of my son's basketball games. So then when you're setting these financial goals, I use the SMART methodology. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So again, starting small, maybe within your own finances right now, you can find little pockets of money where you go, you know what? I can actually decrease a couple of those visits for the Mexican restaurant takeout, and I can maybe go hire a house cleaner. So now that way I'm buying myself some more time. So now I have time to go on that hike or to go to a couple more of my son's basketball games. So by there, you're actually setting a financial goal, and you didn't have to save anymore right now. As financial planners, we're always recommending save, 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 but sometimes you can just find pockets of money from what you already have.
Awesome. I love that. Great. So attitudes towards money are often learned in the family unit. I know that's where I learned a lot about it. What are some next steps for someone that's ready to start gathering more information? Laurie, if you want to kick us off with this one.
Yes, I learned about finances from my dad, and in our group, a lot of people who seem to be a little knowledgeable about finances also learned it from their parents. So that's one way to learn it, but you don't have to learn it that way. You can start where you are. You don't have to worry about being behind. You don't have to worry about knowing anything about the stock market or cryptocurrency or GameStop. You can just start where you are and basically look at your goals and then decide where you want to go from there. I would also suggest that you don't put it off, and think of it as empowering yourself to do something as opposed to forcing yourself to do it. So you might think, oh, everybody says I have to save for retirement and I don't really want to. But the reality is, when you get to retirement, you're going to wish you had started way at the beginning, because when you start putting a little bit away every month, every year, it builds on itself. So if you put $100 away every month at, say, 6%, which is approximately what they say the market does, the stock market, at the end of 5 years, you'll have $15,000, but you only put $12,000 in it. But at the end of 30 years doing that, you'll have $94,000. and you wouldn't have put nearly that much in. So it is something that you want to do for yourself. And another reason that women need to focus on it is because women tend to live longer than men. I think right now they're saying men live to average age of 76 and women live to 81. Women don't make as much as men. We've heard a lot about that. And also women in the middle of their careers will often take a break and either have kids or go take care of a loved one. And then when they start back up into the industry, they're not at the same place that they were when they left. So the people, usually the men who were in that field, they've just marched forward and increased their salary, and women have to kind of go back and start again. So that's why it is something you want to focus on. And if I was going to pick one thing that I would tell you to do, it's to use the tools that Salesforce has given you with the 401k. So I think Salesforce matches up to 6% of your 401k. So that's money that you can take out of your paycheck and it just goes right into that account. Eventually you won't even notice that the money's gone, and it'll just start building and growing for you. And it's something that you will appreciate later. There's other things you can do with the 401k that basically will help you in the future. But if you've already done that and you want to know what to do next, I would suggest talking to your friends, talking to your coworkers, reading books. There were some books I was going to mention for anybody who wants to learn more. Elizabeth Warren actually wrote a book with her daughter about finances, All Your Worth, it's called. And another good one is Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. So basically, don't worry about where you are. Just start with something, like Maggie said. Start small with something.
I love that.
I'd actually like to add to that, because I know with our family being the first opportunity for us to learn about finances. Well, I'm a first generation Nigerian American, and my parents talked to me about savings, but they didn't talk more about finances. So a lot of what I learned came from my friends. And, of course, yes, I understand the 401k and matching, what you contribute versus what your company does. But a lot of what I learned came from talking to my friends, having those very candid and transparent conversations about, how much they're making for their particular roles. What are some of the expectations? What is it that they're wanting to accomplish? If they're okay with making what they are, where do they see themselves in the future? What are some of the things that they are investing in, whether it is the stock market, whether it's a mutual fund, whether it's an EFT, what are some of the different ways that they're utilizing, being smarter with their money and not working harder for their money? Because as an entrepreneur, coming from the entrepreneurial side, I knew that if I didn't work, I didn't eat. But nobody really talked to me about the importance of starting up a Roth IRA or a 401k as an entrepreneur. It wasn't until I got to the corporate side. So having those conversations earlier, I think, is going to be the biggest difference for how you're able to succeed long term. And just finding a group of people, your close friends, that you truly are able to be transparent, to have these sometimes taboo conversations, really, really makes a big impact long term. Because someone like myself who didn't have that opportunity to, have their parents sit down and talk to them about, making sure that you set aside a certain amount each month, or, invest in this, or, save for a rainy day. These conversations can definitely happen over, coffee with your girlfriends. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just a matter of that psychological trust, knowing who you can talk to about your finances and how to improve them.
Awesome. Yeah, I think all of that is so important. And I love the advice you gave. And we'll definitely get into the transparency around, talking with friends in a couple of questions from now. But third question. So changing your money mindset needs to be a habit. What are your favorite habit building tips for hitting financial goals? Naomi, if you want to kick us off with that one.
Some of my favorites, and what has worked wonderfully for me, is I did what's called a noodle budget. I got down to the bare minimum. Like, what do I really need in order to take care of all of my bills, all of my necessities each month. And then I compared it to what I was bringing in from my checks or any other side hustles I might have had, and determined, okay, how much do I need to save? If this is my goal for the year, how much do I need to save in order to accomplish that? If I want to pay a certain amount of debt off, how much will I really need? And sticking to it, because a lot of times we have these budgets and they look good on paper, but when you're at at the restaurant, that extra piece of cake, that extra drink at the bar at happy hour, those add up, and you're not thinking about your budget right then. But I utilized an app called Mint. And one thing that I loved about Mint, yes, it allows you to, of course, track your credit score, track any bills that you may have, but it also shows you a weekly update, a summary of where you spent your money. And that was a reality check for me, because when I put in how much I wanted to spend for, let's say, entertainment, for food, for groceries, for my rent, insurance, and so on and so forth, it utilized, I linked my debit card and my credit card to it, and it gave me a weekly breakdown of, Naomi, you were way over your budget on this particular thing. When you start seeing these red, you're like, it's slowly mentally, you're like, oh, okay, I need to take a better grip of this. Like, the reality of it is I will never reach my goal if I keep getting in the red. And the more that I realize that, it gives you an opportunity to show when you have streaks of no spending. Oh, Naomi, you have 6 days of no spending today. And it's like the small victories. You'd be surprised. Some people like myself are visual. I needed that reassurance to say, okay, Naomi, yes, you have it on paper, but the app is also there to say, oh, you were way over. You didn't check this paper for a month, and now look where you are. So I can make some adjustments week to week to know, okay, in order to really reach this goal, let me cut back on this. Or, meeting with my girlfriends. One thing that I love, I talked about it before, is, meeting with my friends and having that transparent conversation. And what we do is every year we get together right before, usually around December, and we'll get together and do emotional, mental, financial, and personal goals. But when we talk about these goals, we write them out for the year, but then we meet again every quarter just to kind of touch base to see where everybody is as far as being on track for their goals. And since these are the same group of ladies that I go out and do brunch and dinners with, when we go and we're having a little too much fun, there's always the one of us in the group who's like, okay, now you said you were saving for this house. We probably don't need to do all these little extras, or, having somebody to hold you accountable outside of having the app has helped tremendously in order to reach some of the financial goals that I have. And also having a separate bank account for my checking than I do for my savings. So that way, when I am trying to put money away, I have it automatically come out. It's auto drafted to go into my savings account. But initially, I had the same bank that had my bank checking and savings, and it was just an easy transfer. Oh, I'm running low in my checking. Let me just send some money from my savings. But when I realized that I was truly not saving any money doing that, I started utilizing a bank that I didn't have a savings card for. And it takes about 4 to 5 business days for any money to transfer to an external source. So mentally, once again, it allowed me to start thinking, okay, I can't touch this money, because by the time I need it, I have moved on and I can't use this money anymore. So it's the little things, creating that noodle budget, getting to the bare minimum, setting up those separate banking accounts. So separating my checkings from my savings, and then having those accountability sessions with my friends to hold not just myself, but them as well. Because, hey, if we need to cut back on going out and taking trips, then hey, let's do it, because collectively we want to be successful. When we sit down and have our yearly review, yes, I knocked off 1, 2, 3 out of the 4 items. It's great. So those are just some of the things that helped me, and one of the favorite things that I've enjoyed. And realistically, that's what I've told all my friends to do, and it's helped them. Once you get to the bare minimum, the bones of what you really need, you'd be surprised where you spend your money. You would really be surprised on what you could save and put to the side. So yeah, it's the little things.
Yeah, I'll add to that. We enjoyed this conversation so much when Naomi had shared this, and she's like, you're saving for a house. What's going on here? Too many brunches. So, so I read this quote. I just wanted to share with you. So Stephen Covey, he's a self-help author, and he had said, it's easy to say no when there's a deeper yes burning inside. That's so important. You know, it really speaks to what is it like if you're on that noodle budget, you can be on that noodle budget because you have these things that are really so much more important to you. When we had talked previously, I talked about, we often hear about needs versus wants. And Sarah Newcomb had written the book Loaded, and basically what she says in it is you can have wants and then you can have needs, but there's like these intrinsic needs, like there's things that really just make your day. And I had said mine are French vanilla coffee creamer, hugs for my boys, chocolate peanut butter, and walks outside, probably because of the chocolate peanut butter. But it's basically, these are things that I love to have in my life. They complete me every day. I love to have them. Some of them have a financial cost. Some of them don't. Naomi was talking about the fact that she was having time with her girlfriends. Sometimes it's just getting together with your girlfriends. It doesn't mean that it's going to have a financial cost.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go out for that brunch, right? You can actually stay at home if you want to. And there was another thing that she had mentioned. The separate savings account or separate money market account is so important. And Elizabeth is doing a rock star job putting everything in the chat. So I'll list a couple of websites. Bankrate.com and gobankingrates.com are easily two websites you can go to, and you can look for current interest rates for high yield accounts. Basically, that means you're going to earn a higher interest rate on these online bank accounts than you were in a brick and mortar bank. And it's because these online banks don't have the overhead costs. So right now, across the board in our country, interest rates are not that great, but they're going to get better. And you might as well start saving now, just like, Naomi and Laurie had said, you can start saving now a little bit. Starting small goes a long way.
Absolutely.
I wanted to mention a company that I've recently looked into. It's called Elvest, Ellevest. And it's a company that was started by a woman who moved from the stock market over to start her own company. And it's very focused on women's needs and women's goals and how to manage money. And they have different seminars that you can go to that will help you figure out where you want to go, or they even have career coaching. Even if you don't join them, if you just sign up for their newsletter, it is very interesting reading. And they have a plan that you can start with just a little bit of money and then have some transferred over to their account. And they actually invest it in the stock market. So you'll get some of those higher interest rates that Maggie was talking about. Of course, if you get in the stock market, it can be more risky than just keeping your money in the bank. But over the long term, the market has like an upward arrow. So it should go up over time. And that's why we're mentioning these things for a long-term goal, not like a goal for a vacation might stay in your savings account, but a goal for a house, you might want to invest in something that's riskier to make more money. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there because that's an interesting company.
Thank you. Yeah, those are all great points. We'll jump into the next question. We've already started touching on it a bit, but money can really feel like one of the last taboo topics to discuss openly with friends and colleagues. So how would you build a culture of transparency, support, and accountability around financial goals?
Well, I mean, like I stated, I sit down with my girlfriends. We all have diverse backgrounds, from, friends who are in the medical field to social work to me in tech. So all of our goals are a little different, but being able to, sit down and talk about, okay, this is where we are now. Where do we want to be? And we sit down and do 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals. So that way we have it on paper, and we have other eyes to look at it to see, okay, this is what you said you were going to do. And just continue to have that, hey, where are you with this? Hey, and celebrate when we do reach certain milestones for our savings goals. And we definitely do that. And then also, one thing that I really love, especially transitioning into tech, I joined a group on Facebook that is strictly for women of color, actually, who are in the tech industry. And some of the transparency that I've seen as far as how to negotiate for higher salaries or for different raises or promotions, because a lot of times when trying to accomplish financial goals, that also means if I need to make more money, how do I talk? How do I start that conversation? And they give you those tools, those steps that are necessary to, when you're going into this meeting, one thing that was shared was having an accomplishment journal. So that way you have something documented as far as, okay, since I've been in this role, I've been able to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm working on 5 and 6. So when you're going to your manager or whoever it is, your HR, in regards to that next compensation raise, you have documentation and you're able to confidently say, this is what I'm worth and this is what I'm wanting to accomplish. So you can work smarter and not so much harder. Sometimes that financial increase is just you simply stepping up and getting the next raise or applying for another role or investing in yourself to get a new certification so you can take the exam to get into another industry. Another thing that I've done is also touch base with people who are into investing. I was new to it and was completely clueless. But what I found is a group of other first generation immigrants who were very passionate, have done the research, who are in the industry, and they were open to sharing their knowledge with the rest of us. And so it was not so much like a mutual fund or anything, but we all can collectively have conversations about, hey, have you noticed this trend? Have you seen this? And have conversation about, okay, this is just my thought, but I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to invest in, do the research, and really pushing the understanding of, okay, yes, we're doing this as a collective, but always going back to the foundation of doing the research. It's helped tremendously. And I think the more that people have these conversations and are open about where you're falling short, you don't have to be a genius to invest in the stock market, but having conversations with people who have been tenured and understand it a little more to break it down so it can make sense to you could be the key between you having to hold on to money versus investing that money to get a higher yield on your return. So those are just some of the things that, my friends and I have talked about, some of the things that have worked for me. And I really, really liked that accomplishment journal, because sometimes we forget what all we've done, but tracking it, whether it's weekly, monthly, the little things, they do add up. So when it comes time for those performance reviews, the mid-year reviews, and you're having these conversations with your manager, you have the data to back why you're requesting for this increase. So,
yeah, two things on that, Naomi. One, then I'm going to lob it over to Laurie. One thing, the accomplishment journal, it's so good because it's not only just for you to, work with your supervisor. It's so good for you too, because it's going, wait a second, I did do that, and I did that. And, sometimes we've got to go ahead and do this to ourselves because we're so hard on ourselves. We don't even realize all that we've done. And then we can present it to somebody else and be like, yeah, check this out. I did all these things and I have dates and data to back it up. So I think I absolutely love the accomplishment journal idea. And then Laurie, I mean, the fact that she's, part of one of the co-organizers of the Austin meetup, this like 2,700 women, isn't it, Laurie? I mean, to have that and be such a way of, just like what Naomi was talking about, you can either have a small group, you have that confidential, safe space to ask whatever questions we have about money, because we all think our questions are dumb. They're not dumb. We just don't know what we don't know, and that's okay. And so I think, what Laurie's a part of as well, it's just morphed into such an amazing group of women that they're just still asking those questions. Right, Laurie?
Yes. The person who founded it just started with her having a one-on-one conversation with a friend of hers. And then another friend said they were interested in that, and then would meet at different people's houses until it got so big that they were meeting, at coffee shops. And then we were meeting at the library before COVID hit. And now that we're doing Zoom meetings, we have some people that used to be in Austin that moved, that still join into the calls, and some people that had friends that heard about it and they join in. So our mission is sort of to provide that safe space to talk about issues with investing, because like we were saying, it's not often a topic that we get to. This is kind of obvious, but I'm in this quilting group, and I was talking to the 50 to 70-year-olds who are in that group. And I said, yes, I'm going to go to this talk about empowering, people of finance, people who might be starting out. And I thought, they're going to offer some advice that they think people should know. No, that was crickets. They didn't say anything. And I realized that is the norm. That is the environment that we're coming from, where we don't have those conversations with each other about, oh, did you see the report on the inflation? It looks like it's going up, or we better buy our Christmas presents now because the supply chain's blocked. And, that's going to affect these stocks. So you can get really in depth with your friends or with somebody in the group that you maybe can't with someone else. I think of it as kind of like we're changing a norm, that we're going to start focusing on these things to help ourselves, like saving for retirement or saving for a house, not because like our dad told us it was a good idea, because it's a goal that we have and it's a direction we want to go. And I think it's really empowering to have that conversation with other women. And it sounds like, Naomi, you found like a great group of people to talk with. Yeah, I would like a local group you can actually see physically. We don't see each other physically right now in my group. Yeah, if you guys want to join, feel free. We also have some YouTube videos on basic investing. So we're trying to build up that conversation and have it in a safe way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the biggest thing, being able to trust who you're talking to about your finances, because it can be a sensitive conversation. Sometimes you feel like you're not where you need to be, so you're down on yourself, and then you don't want somebody else to judge you. But when you can get around people where you can completely be transparent and say, hey, this is where I am, this is what I know, but this is what I don't know. Do you have any information, or can you connect me with somebody who might be able to answer these questions? Never being afraid to ask is going to be key for your success, because like she said, you don't know what you don't know, but nobody knows everything. But if I can reach out to Maggie and she can share certain things, and I talk to Laurie and she can share something, now I have two sides that I can add to what I already know to increase what it is that I'm doing when it comes to my financial goals. And I wish more people had these conversations and, just kind of took off those blinders as to, okay, well, the only way that I'm going to become Jeff Bezos is if I do buy Bitcoin. There's other ways to increase your wealth. It doesn't have to be what you see on social media. Sometimes it's simple as just having a conversation. Hey, what worked for you? What works for you? And finding what is going to work for you. Finding your happy medium within that. So, yeah.
Those are some really great points. Thank you all. We'll jump into our next question. Getting a financial planner before your own portfolio of assets can feel very overwhelming and unnecessary. What advice and resources do you have for someone looking to bring in some professional help with their financial goals? Maggie, if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, so it definitely can feel overwhelming, because I think there's been in the past, you go to a traditional financial planner and you're supposed to have assets to invest, like you said, Laurence, like a portfolio of assets. And that's not the case anymore. It's really that there's so many more financial planners out there where you can just go and ask your financial questions. So there's a few different networks, but what I wanted to first say is, what is it that you're first looking for? Are you looking for someone to help you keep on track with your financial goals? If it's keeping on track, then maybe that's a friend. Maybe that's a group of women like Naomi has. Maybe that's a meetup group like Laurie has. Maybe that's a financial coach like me. There could be a number of people who could help you with that. If it's that you're looking for maybe some more detail, like more investing questions, or just, okay, I've heard about some more insurance. I've got my employee benefits coming up. I don't really know. And Salesforce has done a great job, but I'd like a little bit more help. Then you can definitely go to different financial planning networks to find an advisor. So a couple, our XY Planning Network, that is a group of about 1,500 advisors, and they are primarily serving Generation X and Y and even younger. And there's a lot of those financial advisors that on their website, there's a find an advisor, and they'll list whether they charge an hourly rate. You can go and meet with them. Sometimes some of these financial advisors have an AMA, an Ask Me Anything session, where you can just book an hour with them and just throw all your financial questions at them. There's also NAPFA, that is the National Association for Personal Financial Advisors. The CFP board has also finding an advisor at letsmakeaplan.org. And then the Garrett Planning Network, that's GARRETT, because Elizabeth is doing such a rock star job. That is another place where financial advisors charge hourly rates. And so it doesn't have to be that you have to have assets to invest just to go and ask your financial questions.
I'd like to add something to that. Most people think that if you go to a financial advisor, you're basically stuck in that relationship, that you're going to be seeing them, every 6 months, year after year. And there's different options. You can go, most financial advisors will let you go and you take all of your info, bring a huge pile of paper with you, and they will help you come up with a plan. And then you can go away and implement the plan, and then only go back if you want more help, or if you want to check that you're still going the right direction, or if you need to update anything. So you don't have to see them periodically. You can still get access to those skills on a one-to-one basis. And also looking for a financial planner, the reason you would want to do it is basically somebody to help guide you when you're making these decisions. You can do it on your own, but if you feel like you want somebody to guide you, that's when you would go and look for a financial planner. What was I going to say? Oh, you actually interview different financial planners, and you want to pick somebody that you click with, because if they're doing a good job, you want to go to their office and talk to them. You want to say, well, am I on track for the college fund? And then you can talk about new goals that you have with them. There's a lot of big corporations that have financial planners, and you might not get the same one-on-one feel that you would get for somebody who's actually working on their own. But definitely look for somebody that kind of fits with you.
And I like what you said during our discussion for the prep, that if you do get an advisor and it doesn't work out, that it's okay to walk away and find somebody else. You're not bound to them. And I think a lot of times people have this mindset, well, this is my advisor. I don't exactly like what they're doing. I'm not really happy, but you're not stuck by any means. That's part of the interview process. If you don't feel like it's working, feel free to cut your ties and find what works best for you, because it is your money.
Yeah, absolutely. They're working for you. You're not working for them. Absolutely. I totally agree with you both.
Yes.
I think those are some super important points to keep in mind. It's your resource for you. So got to find someone that you click well with. We're going to head into our last question for now, but I want to just let the audience know that we will have some time to do some Q&A. So I see that a lot of people have been typing in the chat, but if you have any extra questions, feel free to put those in now, and we can get those after this next question. So our dollar and where we spend it can be very powerful. Do you have any advice for someone looking to have a positive impact with their spending?
I'm a big fan of shopping small. I love working with small businesses. I love working with women-owned businesses, and have made it a point through this past year to focus my dollars on whether it's small businesses in regards to clothing, to home products. When I realized that a lot of these big corporations, they're starting to make more of an initiative to give back to the community versus these small businesses. I think especially with COVID, they were impacted deeply by not having the customer. So I personally make it a point of researching, looking into some of the smaller companies, whether it's online or near me in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that I can support by purchasing my items from them. Because as much as I enjoy saving, if I can also be a blessing to somebody else, then let their business also grow. So yeah, stop small, especially the holidays are coming up. I've already started making my list of companies that I'm wanting to, support during this time. Because of course we can be familiar with the targets, the big names, let me say that. But sometimes it's the smaller names, those that I was an entrepreneur, so I understand what those struggles can be. And when you have people who can support you and continue to spread your name to other people to generate more business for you, it really is a blessing. So whenever afforded the opportunity, I definitely make sure to shop small.
Yeah, that's a great point, Naomi. And then, I think as far as just impactful spending, it can also be if you don't have the finances necessarily for maybe a favorite charity of yours, what is it that you can do to, offer your time or your talent, like what's in your wheelhouse. I was recently the PTO treasurer for my son's elementary school, and it was I was able to give my my time, but I got so much back from it because it was when my oldest was just starting kindergarten at the time, and it gave me back so much because I immediately got to know the administration, the teachers. They got to know both my son and me at the same time. And so I think, especially now with, as we're coming out of COVID and maybe your finances are a little bit, not where you want them to be, just look at other ways that you can honor, those favorite charities of yours.
And I think that's one thing that I enjoy about GM Financial. They give us quarterly a certain amount of community service hours that we can utilize to give back to us collectively, whether it be with your team or if you have your own personal charity that you're involved with that you want to continue to serve. They allow you to do that. And like right now, we're getting ready for the holiday season. So we're doing Meals on Wheel, we're doing the Salvation Army, all these different opportunities to, celebrate life and give back. I think for a corporate level, to be able to give your employees an opportunity, utilize it. It's not just time off, it's literally you being able to serve others the same way, somebody would want you to be served. So yeah, I'm all a huge fan of being able to give back to your community.
Yeah, I think giving back to the community is such a great thing that people can sometimes forget about. So love all the advice that you gave. So I'm just looking at the chat now. Looks like we don't have too many questions. You guys did such a great job covering everything throughout the panel. But thank you all so much for your points today. I think that I definitely learned a lot from this, and I'm sure that everyone else did. And I don't know if there's any, wrap up points that you think would be helpful for people to, keep in mind.
Oh, should we talk money scripts real quick, ladies? Because when we talked earlier, so when we had our pre-session, we talked money scripts a little bit and it resonated. So just to let you know, money scripts, they're a term coined by Dr. Brad Klontz and his father, Ted Klontz. Dr. Brad Klontz is a financial psychologist and certified financial planner. Money scripts are beliefs that we have that we subconsciously learned probably sometime in our childhood, and they may still be in our subconscious now, but they may not be serving us anymore. And so basically, long story short, you might have just some things going on in the back of your head about money, that you're spending money in that way, but that isn't the way that really is serving you anymore. And so when you think, oh, that's why, when my mom said money doesn't grow on trees, that's not okay. I don't know why I still have that in my brain, but it got repeated again and again and again. And so try to just be aware of maybe some of those things that you learned about money from your parents, your grandparents, your loved ones when you were growing up. And sometimes they're not actual words. Sometimes it might have just been the circumstances. Maybe it's that every time that your parents, talked about money, they ended up fighting about it. And so whenever you think about money, immediately your shoulders tense up, you're super just anxious about it. You don't want to talk about it. And maybe you just don't even pay attention to your bills because you just don't want to deal with it. So Naomi or Laurie, do you want to share on that at all?
Definitely. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, my dad was a big saver, and I think it came from his mom going through the depression, and some of those characteristics rubbed off on him. And so he wouldn't spend money really at all. He had a bunch of old holy blue jeans that he would wear around, and just like it just wasn't important to him. And after getting a job, I find myself doing the same thing and not spending money on things that would make me happy or would benefit me by making my life easier. So it's really easy to have absorbed some of those patterns and not even realize that there's a reason that you're doing it. And so it is hard to break. It's a habit that's hard to break. Naomi, what were you going to say?
I was just going to add that, you know, after our conversation earlier in the week, money, the term, I was not familiar with the term, but I understood the ideology. And it is very surprising the habits that we get from just even observation from our family, our friends, because especially I'll go back to being a first generation. I knew a lot about, okay, my parents were saving money because of what it took for them to get here, but they work. And it's like you never really saw them enjoy their money and you never understood why. And sometimes, you know, listening to stories of them growing up, it started to click. And I was like, oh, you know, and it's sometimes funny because they'll see me traveling and doing certain things. They're like, you're always spending your money. You're always doing this. You're never going to have any money, without understanding that now that I understand that money is not just meant to be hoarded. There are opportunities for you to enjoy things. Like Maggie was talking about, one thing that really makes her happy is being able to have her French vanilla coffee. You don't have to go without just because you that's something that you didn't have before. You can still enjoy life. You can still save money, and you can still have healthy money habits without it feeling guilty. You shouldn't have a negative connotation when it comes to money because, you know, yes, you know, money is meant to be spent, but for the right things. What is it that's going to cause you to be happy with the certain items that you are tying your money to? And once you start thinking about what your goal is, what you're wanting to do, I think that does help change how you view money and how you use your money. I know for me, I think I talked about it. The board game Cash Flow was my aha moment when it came to finances and money. I was clueless. I thought, you know, you save money, you might put some in your 401k and you're good. But one thing I loved about this game Cash Flow is you choose, you know, you have an opportunity to choose characters, whether you're a librarian, politician, a teacher, and it gives you a salary. And then as you go through the board, it's almost like Monopoly, but not quite, because as you go through the board, different things happen. You have a birth of a child and it'll say it costs you $2,500. And now it's subtracting from your monthly spending. Oh, your car broke down. Oh, you got a raise. Like, it gives these real life scenarios. And the whole purpose of the game is to get out of the rat race, out of just continuing to live paycheck to paycheck, and understanding what it takes, certain sacrifices you might need to make along the way in order to get there. And after playing that game quite a few times, it was just mind blowing that these are things I didn't usually think about. Like, I don't have an emergency fund. If something happens to my car tomorrow, I'm going to be in a very bad position. And just the little things that you'd be surprised. And I'm so glad that my friend introduced me to that game, because a lot of times when we're thinking of savings, we might think of a small savings goal, but if anything this pandemic taught us, we need to be prepared for anything just in case. It was so surprising to me how many people did not have, you know, two months worth of their bills saved. God forbid something happens and you lose your job, what are you going to do? And games like this help me think more outside of my immediate goal and think of, okay, what if? I need to find what ifs. What are the possible what ifs? Your AC unit in your house goes out. That's not cheap. So starting to plan ahead, okay, what will I do in this situation? So sometimes just the perception. I'm a very visual person, and the more I was playing this game, it took forever to get out of the rat race. But it started making me think, do I really need to buy these new watches? Or should I put this aside and save and invest in updating something in the house? Like, there's it's give or take, starting to think outside of, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and also understanding, well, what if this happens? You can do those things, but are you also prepared for the what ifs in your life? So yeah. Game-changing game. I loved it. Cash flow.
I like that a lot. I think keeping like the what ifs in mind is always something that everyone should be keeping in mind. But kind of just thinking back to like high school, I think that could be like a great game for like juniors, seniors to maybe play before they head off into the real world, because I think you don't really get a lot of training on that. Like you said, like we've discussed, just talking to parents, maybe some friends, and then it does take so long to eventually learn about it. So maybe that could just be like a good thing that we could start incorporating into high school education. That's just my 2 cents. But it looks like we do have a question from Lex. So Lex, if you want to come off mute.
Thanks so much. It got me thinking, speaking of scripts, I think maybe depending on where some of us entered our careers initially, the industry or environments where we entered, there seems to be maybe an unspoken script or something along the lines of maybe non-transparency or keeping things like compensation close to your chest. And I've thought a lot about recently, and this conversation inspired me to try to maybe establish more of a culture environment with the women in our team or kind of organization of being more transparent. But that can feel awkward or intimidating to start. Would you all have any advice or tips on how to get a transparency conversation or like building up a little culture around that going?
Yeah, I mean, Lex, great question. I'm a member of Ladies Get Paid. It's a free community that Claire Wasserman had started, and it's basically just, she created it because she was looking for salary negotiation, because she had to do it herself, and she wanted to then say, well, if I had to do it, then others can do it, and I want to empower others. And so just within that community, there's always women in there who are saying, okay, I have this job offer, or I've had this, and how should I go about doing it? But it's so much more than just salary negotiation. It's about, just all kinds of things. And sometimes it's just, one of them is a hashtag share your wins channel, just to say, hey, what happened to you recently? Kind of like the accomplishment journal that Naomi had talked about. So that is one large community I would highly recommend to anyone. And then for yourself, just for what you're looking for, I always go back to start small. I always go back to baby steps, but start just with a few individuals, within, a few of your colleagues, and just, maybe bring up like, this is what I'm looking to do. This is what I'd really like to put more transparency, just, in talking about salaries and everything, and get their input, because you're putting your vulnerability out there by just bringing up the topic, and then they're going to converse with you and let you know, oh yeah, I've totally been wanting to do that. Or they might kind of be like, oh yeah, it really makes me nervous. And you're going to get some feedback either way, but that way it's going to let you know, okay, you're starting small by building a smaller group. And as more and more people want to be a part of that group, they're going to find out about it. They're going to want to join.
Thank you. That's a good point. Starting small. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we have 3 minutes left. Does anyone have any other points they'd like to make, or any other questions they'd like to ask the panelists?
If you raise your hand, I can take y'all off mute so you can directly ask the panelists as well. If you don't really know how to type it all out, I know I can get nervous about it. Oh, perfect, Kristen. Oh wait, maybe, I don't know. Okay, where are you at? Oh, there at the top, allowed to talk.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
I was just wondering your advice. I think I just factor in like a spouse or a partner. And I know when my husband and I first got engaged, finances was not spoken about prior. And we had to literally like write on a napkin what we made, what our debts were, and we just passed it to each other. But we have come a long way. We met with an advisor, and it was great. But I guess I'm just wondering too, if you would recommend that as women, we still always make sure that we keep our own separate financial, I guess, I guess when you have to merge, I guess, with someone else, how you kind of balance this?
For me, I see it 50-50. I basically, some people, it works better for them because then they have their individual accounts so that they can go and do what they want, and then they contribute to a joint account that covers the household expenses, and that works for them. Some come in and they're like, no, we're joint all the way, and that works for them as well. So I don't think there's a one size fits all. I mean, that's why personal finance is personal, but I definitely think, the kudos to you for meeting with a financial advisor. One of the things with money scripts that is so interesting is, guess what? Two people in a relationship, I don't know why it is that we don't talk about money so much before we get married, but totally true. And then that's why money is one of the largest causes of divorce. And so it's just having conversations, I think, and having the awareness that you both came from two different households, you had two different ways of growing up with money, and just honoring that and having compassion for each other to go, okay, that might not be the way I would have done it, but let's maybe kind of at least have a conversation about it to see where each other is coming from. But as far as the accounts go, I think whatever works best for you, because whatever works best for the two of you is what you're going to keep doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, we are right at time. I know when a face pops up right at the end, it's pretty much time to close down, but thank you to everyone who logged on. Thank you to our speakers as well for this great conversation. I know I learned a lot, and all week I've been inspired about everything. I saw Elvest and I was like, all right, maybe I should make a separate savings account for the emergency fund, and then other savings accounts for other things. So I'm very excited and inspired, not expired. But I hope that y'all all have a great rest of your afternoon. This is recorded. We will share it with Lex so that y'all can share it with your colleagues as well. Get connected with us as well, with the various speakers and all that good stuff. And unless anyone has any other closing remarks, Lex, I'm not sure if you wanted to close off.
No, you closed us very beautifully. I wanted to say thank you all so much for sharing, being vulnerable. I think some of the big takeaways, in addition to all the great resources that Elizabeth captured for us, is really the transparency, but also I think accepting that your relationships to money or the scripts or kind of whatever you thought before are what they are, and that's okay. And they don't have to carry such heaviness. So thank you very much for leading the charge in vulnerability there.
Absolutely. And before I close this down, do you mind if we get a quick group photo? Because we didn't get it at the beginning. All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna get this saved, but again, thank y'all so much. And I hope to see y'all all again real soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
It's great talking to you.
Great job, Laurence.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.